Good evening and welcome to Bible study for this Wednesday, June the 17th. This evening's study will be somewhat abbreviated in that we've got a leadership meeting at the church again tonight to discuss plans and decide who's going to do what and when. So I'm going to record this early and then play it, and you can work through it at your own speed. And then I will, if there is something to report from the meeting tonight, I will come back with a report later on tonight. Tonight's Bible study, I heard a speaker the other day speak about the idea of lament and how lament was an appropriate response for individuals and churches maybe during this time. And was thinking about that a whole lot. We have a collection of our Psalms in the Bible that are Psalms of lament, and I'm going to use one this evening just as an example of what I mean, but then to experience our own lament a little bit. Lament is a time-honored process. In fact, it's recommended in several places in the Old Testament. It's what Israel did when things didn't go right or go the way that maybe they thought they should. We find them, as I said, in the Psalms a lot, and there Israel's crying out individually and corporately as a body to God when things seem miserable. We think particular during the exile. But lament is a response to grief, and I got to thinking about the idea of grief. Grief is our human response, our bodily response, our mental response, our psychological response to any sort of loss. When we have loss, we have grief. Our grief in intensity varies with the intensity of the loss. So sometimes loss is very minimal, and the grief then is very minimal, almost maybe negligible. Other times the grief is intense because the loss is intense, and I think in particular when there is the death of someone in our family or someone we love, then the grief can be pretty intense. Elisabeth Kubler-Ross got very famous some 40 years ago for throwing out to the psychologists what she called the stages of grief. And these stages are considered textbook at this point. They happen in any loss. Sometimes they happen together at the same time, and sometimes they happen in different orders. But the general order of the stages is this: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Anytime we have a significant loss, we experience these things. I questioned that when I first heard it and wasn't totally sure, but then I'll share an experience with you, and this is one of those minor grief incidents and minor experience of loss, and yet nonetheless it fit the textbook, and I'll show you why. I had gone to a conference in downtown Memphis, Tennessee at the convention center. And like most cities, the parking garages were expensive, but I just happened onto an on-street parking place within a couple of blocks of where I had to be. Parking meter, but it's one that allowed some time if you pumped some coin into it. And I got out of the car to see what kind of coins I would need, and somehow in the process locked my car doors with my keys in the ignition. Not a pleasant experience with a nearly brand new car in a strange city, right downtown, keys visible. Somebody would break a window out to get the keys in the car. First thing out of my mouth, if maybe not verbally to myself, is, I don't believe this happened. There's denial. Secondly was anger. I was angry. I was angry at myself. I was angry at the car door for shutting tight. I was angry at whatever might have happened. Now, these stages can go on, and intense grief can go on for months and months, but in a minor grief like this, they were just a fleeting moment, but I share them because they are an example. I was angry with myself. Thirdly, and I reversed the order a little bit, I had an instant state of depression. Oh, what am I going to do? And because I didn't know what I was going to do, there was just this helplessness for a brief moment. And then came the bargaining. Now, I'm a believer in God, as most of you who are watching and hearing this are. So my bargaining is with God. God, if you'll get me through this one, I promise I will be much more careful in the future. God, if you get me through this, I'll carry a spare key. God, if you get me through this, you see, and we bargained. And then there was this degree of acceptance. It's like, okay, get your head on right here. Here's the situation. It's real. It's happened now. What are you going to do? You got to make a plan. And as luck would have it, there were 2 parking places there, and a person in a van pulled up in the parking place behind me, got out of their van, saw me going through these stages rapidly, walked up and smiled and said, I think I have a coat hanger in the van. I'm kind of like, oh, good. And he did something that set me free of this grief process that was really kind of neat. He says, you really think you can break into your car with a coat hanger? I said, yes. He said, how long do you think it'll take you? I said, I think I can do it within a minute. And so he took his watch and he said he was going to time me. He made a game out of it, and it alleviated everything, and we both could stand there and laugh about it. For what it's worth, he did time me, and I had it open in 43 seconds, which then scared me because I realized how easily anybody could break into my car. But anyway, I share that as a funny story. In the face of most of the griefs we face, it isn't funny. But it does convey what's happening. I am proposing to you tonight that we as a church, and we as church people, are experiencing grief. We're experiencing grief from a significant loss. Our losses are many. But I want to focus on our loss as a church. We are losing and have lost that ability to worship together, to smile face to face, to shake hands, to hug, to greet. And I don't know about you, but I'm experiencing a tremendous experience of loss with that. I have moved through these stages, and part of my acceptance has been to try to come up with alternate ways for people to experience that togetherness. I've tried live streaming where people can comment back on these. I've tried Zoom talks where we can actually look at each other face to face, and I'm not getting a lot of response from our own church people, and I'm assuming that that is because they're at various stages in this grief process, and they don't see that as a way to deal with it. So I want us to listen for just a moment to the first 2 verses of Psalm number 13. Listen to this psalm carefully. This is David. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? I'll go ahead and read verse 3. Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Wow. What a cry to God. What an experience. We don't know what David was experiencing at that point that he wrote that, but grief to its intensity. So here's what I want you to do. I ask people, if you listened this morning, to come with a notepad or some pieces of paper and a pen or pencil. If you don't have them, go get them right now. Pause this Bible study. Go get them. But first, listen to my instructions. When you have your pencil and paper, I want you to take just a little while, maybe 3 to 5 minutes. Stop this video presentation. Just stop it, hit the stop button. You can come back to it. Hit the stop button, and I want you to take the paper and write your own lament. And you can do it probably most easily by answering the question, what have I lost? What have I lost? What is it that makes me wonder if God is forgetting me forever? And you can talk in those terms. God has broad shoulders. He can hear our cries, even if they seem somewhat accusatory. It would be okay. One thing that I would write is, "Oh Lord, why have you let this thing happen?" And oh Lord, why this is hurting? Why? And then I would probably transcend to something like, well, what is it we're supposed to get out of this, Lord? What are you trying to tell us? I think that would be fine. So I want you to listen to that again if you need to, and then turn off the video and go write your own lament. You don't have to show this to anybody. I'm not going to have you send them in. We're not checking them for a grade. This is just so that you might formulate your own lament. Okay? And then when you're ready, come back to the video. And I'm going to pause right now and just simply stop to give you time to pause the video. Okay, now I'm assuming that you all have written something on your paper. And if we were in a different medium where we could have feedback, I would invite you to share them if you wanted to, but you don't have to. I want you to consider now another question, and it's similar. This psalmist talks in personal terms. It's an individual lament. But many of the laments in Scripture talk of the group of people, the nation Israel. Lord, have you forgotten about us? And I'd like for you to go back to your paper. And this is a second lament, but this is answering the question, what have we lost? We as a people, we as Fair Oaks Baptist Church, we as Christians, depending on who's hearing this and who you identify with, your group, your body of people. What have we lost? And write a group lament. Mine I've already expressed pretty much to you, the loss of fellowship, the loss of church, the loss of reaching out to each other, the loss of supporting each other. And yes, we still do some of these things, but it's just not been quite the same, has it? I've had more people talk to me this week about their experience of loss of gathering as a church. Write that down. Write it down as your lament. And I'm going to again pause. Allow you time to do that. Take what time you need, turn off the video, and then come back. Okay, I'm assuming if you're back, you've done your writing. I want you to keep those laments. And I want us to consider some things about grief and loss and lament. Annie Lamott, who has become a favorite writer of mine, wrote